Guys, fellow students, thank you once again for being here and joining us. Uh, for this particular session, we have with us Mrs. Sai Geeta Bhargava, who is a director and lead actuary at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And just to give you all a brief about herself, after completing her graduation and with distinction in statistics from Lady Shri Ram College, University of Delhi in 2006, Mrs. Bhargava went on to pursue a master's in risk and statistics, now the master's in financial mathematics from the prestigious London School of Economics and Political Science, where she presented her dissertation on mortality derivatives. She then began her career with Willis Towers Watson, then known as Towers Watson, in Reigate, UK, and simultaneously pursued the challenging actuarial professional qualification from both Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, UK, and Institute of Actuaries, India. She then relocated to India to manage teams doing UK pension buyout, asset liability management, and embedded value, and thereafter moved to her current role at PricewaterhouseCoopers, founding and leading their Indian actuarial team. Ma'am, if I could request you to please take the students through your journey and share with them your experience.
Sure. So thanks for the warm introduction. I know that a lot of the jargons which Siddharth mentioned, you probably do not understand, which is completely fine. Trust me, a lot of us actuaries are still trying to understand how to explain what we do to each other also, okay, at times. So what we'll do is, so what I call myself, and what I think a number of actuaries would call themselves, are basically accidental actuaries. So it was just happened, one day my cousin came with her husband. Her husband happens to be a actuary in UK. He was very impressive. I asked him, what do you do? He said, he's an actuary. He asked me, what do I like to do? I said, I enjoy maths and I like talking. So he said, then actuarial science is the right profession. And that's it, guys. That was my introduction to actuarial science. And I decided to pursue actuarial science. I was fortunate to get good opportunities. And I think it has been a very exciting journey, but yes, I mean, I wouldn't say that that was enough information to set off my career. My parents, I think for a number of years did not know how to pronounce actuarial science and would instead call me a chartered accountant or something else or the other. Right, so it's great that ISBF is hosting this and giving you a platform to understand what this is. And please, I highly encourage all of you to, when I'm presenting, just ask me questions. It's a very brief presentation. I want this to be more interactive so that you ask questions which you may have. What we'll do is we'll start off with a small presentation which the Institute of Actuaries has prepared. That should give you some understanding of what actuaries themselves think they do. Okay, so tell me if you can see my screen and hear the video.
We can't see the screen as of now.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
No worries.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it now.
An actuary.
Actually is nothing but a risk manager who can take lots of mathematical, statistical methodology, apply into the financial and any other uncertain which could be estimated in the certainty way.
The role of an actuary is very crucial for the risk management of any of the financial institutions.
Profession gives you a solution-oriented approach, and this also gives you future orientation, right? You make a financial sense of uncertain future, so that gives this profession a future orientation.
Somebody who tries to make financial sense of the future.
Say actuary is a nervous system or a brain of an insurance company.
Actuary is a person who assesses the risk management in future.
Actuarial science is a principle-based science. Conventional areas of work for actuaries so far, I just did my initial research on the profession, sort of understood the curriculum, I really like the idea of learning while you earn. So I decided to get into the profession, started my journey of examinations, because unlike other professions, I think in the actual profession you really have to learn to balance work life and study rather than work in life. So it's a very, very important skill to learn as your life brings about increasing responsibilities.
Some of my college friend, little senior, he came back to me and asked, Subhendu, can you fill up this form? One interesting examination which talks about mathematics and statistics only. Oh, I got excited as soon.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Right, guys. So, did you get a glimpse of that presentation?
I think the students did get a glimpse of the video, yes.
Okay, good. So, okay, so now what I'll do is I will, I think I was given a few pointers and I'm going to go through them. Then again, I encourage everyone to ask me questions. And I'm sorry, I have this some issue with this laptop. I'm using somebody else's laptop, so it keeps coming up on notification. So I apologize for that in advance because I think that's going to be there for the entirety of the presentation. Maybe Siddharth, if you want to present, then it may be better.
Sure, I'll do that. You can stop presenting your screen. I'll do that for you.
So I think we've gone through this. We will keep it interactive. There will be time for everyone to ask questions as well. But please feel free to stop me at any point and ask me questions. Let's go to the next one. We've already covered the right. So what are the requisite skills, qualifications, and attitude? Look, to become an actuary, there are a number of exams that you need to qualify. There are about 15 exams. Those exams are primarily analytical in nature. So basically they're maths, stats, economics, commerce based. So it helps to have an analytical bent of mind. What definitely helps is your inclination towards these subjects. Whether or not you like maths, if you are in the profession, everyone would assume that you are very good with numbers. So that's a given. So make sure that if you don't like maths, then maybe this is not the right profession, right? Although I have to say that the chief actuary of MetLife, who I work very closely with, and he's an extremely intelligent person, he was a PhD in physics, and he had never imagined doing actual science, but still landed up here. But having said that, that analytical bent of mind was given, right? So if you are interested in maths, stats, and economics, then you definitely have that given. Knack for programming. So increasingly, programming is a very attractive quality. I am not a programmer, for example. I'm not a modeler, so it's not a defining quality for an actuary. However, having programming skills really makes you differentiate from other sort of resumes. Strong communication skills. So actuarial science as a profession is very complex in nature. I mean, as you've seen in some of the videos, the profession is about making financial sense of the future. So it is basically trying to define something which does not exist with certain assumptions, certain models, etc. Now, for you to be able to first understand those, which you will, given that you will have the skill set with the profession, but for you to be able to communicate that effectively is equally important. And in my career, I've seen a lot of very, very good actuaries, but the ones that have extremely good communication skills go ahead really in their journey. So this is a given as well. I think as a qualification, it doesn't require much. It just requires you to have a basic mathematics degree. I think the Indian one requires you to have an 80% plus, and there is a entrance exam as well. But the other societies around the world do not. And we'll cover which society what also in a little bit detail. But basically, 12 standards with maths is the minimum requirement. That's it. Determination and grit. So I think actual science definitely requires some level of perseverance. While others have to manage work and life, which you would have heard about, joked about, looked etc. That once you join a job, work-life balance becomes very important. Actuaries have another element called studies until they become a qualified actuary. So that becomes even harder because you can see that your friends are enjoying, they have work and life, but you have to adjust studying as well on top of that. It's not that, I mean, you do get certain leaves, etc. from work, but that's not enough. You have to put in extra hours, right? So you do have to make certain sacrifices. And so that level of perseverance and determination needs to be there. Um, the importance to strike a balance between work, exams, and studies. I don't think anybody really achieves the correct balance, but we all strive for that. Okay, but yeah, like I said, that the factor that you have exams to write is additional factor when you compare, especially with your friends, colleagues working maybe in the same industry, but not pursuing actual science. But that is only for a short period of time, right? What is important is that this period can be made shorter because you can pursue higher exams, for example, through your masters or some other studies. It becomes very efficient if you write multiple exams initially, so that this journey is shorter. Also, I highly recommend that while you're studying the exams, I think what the exams gives you is a platform to which will enable you to work. So the actual profession, actually, the exams are not something which is independent to what you're working, right? I mean, sometimes you learn about, for example, algebra, you will never use really algebra in your work, right? But with actual profession, what you study, you will actually see the use of it in the profession. Now, what happens is once you qualify, while you're done with your exams, either in the profession itself will ask you to, appear for certain presentations, certain seminars to show that your minimum technical understanding is there. Additionally, for you yourself to keep up to the market, to keep up with the times, you will have to study. So while the profession requires exams, it should not be looked as a short-term goal. Exams, yes, definitely studying and writing exams, the exam part can be very stressful. But studying is a given with this profession. So you need to be able to equip yourself with different skills, study different papers, etc. It's a given part of the journey of the entire actuarial experience. Okay, if we go to the next slide. So that next slide, please. So pros and cons. Extreme amount of credibility. Once you qualify, that the profession carries enough credibility to say that you know what you're talking about. You have a complete understanding of the subject, and the science itself is such that only actuaries can really understand it. So it holds a lot of respect itself. Okay, you are perceived as business risk experts immediately, right? And from a job perspective, it is well paying. There is well paying, but I have a couple of students who've asked me, when will I get a 1 CR package? So it is well paying, but you have to work hard to get to the 1 CR package. Okay, job stability. It's one of the most stable jobs in the world. A, because you always need actuaries in the world around the globe. B, because the insurance as a sector where actuaries are mainly involved is a very, very stable sector. Because of its impact, the regulator makes sure that they don't become illiquid, except in certain very extreme scenarios like the 2008 crisis. However, actuaries are the last people to lose jobs because they, as a regulatory requirement, they are the core function of a insurance company. Okay, so it's a very stable profession. Compared to my peers, so for example, I'm a part of a consulting firm. Compared to my peers, I would have an accelerated career growth just because my examination gives me a push from a salary perspective. I am perceived as a expert. There is a lot of credibility, etc. Right? Global mobility. I think this is a big factor of the profession. So my qualification, I qualified from the UK Society. My qualification is accepted by the Indian Society. I can move to Singapore, Australia, US, Hong Kong, anywhere, and I don't lose time. I don't lose understanding because the skills are seamless. The profession is accepted everywhere, and the skills are also seamless. So it gives you a lot of global mobility. I started my career in UK, and then I moved to India. I worked with a US based insurance company, and now I work with consulting firms where I work with Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Mauritius, Nigeria, Middle East, all sorts of countries without having any issues, right? Um, like I mentioned, that actuarial exams cover stats, maths, economics, business skills, apart from obviously a lot of actual specific maths, right? So it gives you a great foundation for a wide number of skills. Our programming is something which is fairly recent, given that the data analytics requirement is increasing. So our program is fairly recent in the actual profession, and which really showcases that how it's keeping up with the times. It's also a great, credential to have on your CV if you're good with art programming skills. Yeah, so I mentioned work is extremely application based. What that means is that what you learn, you're applying. You're always applying. Even today, I am looking at a financial model and sort of analyzing it. So it never becomes boring because that does interest me. So that should interest you. I do get to study different problems. One of the pluses which I really like about my job is that the problem statement which a client has, only in my company, for example, only an actuary can really understand it. Only I can understand it, and I can really interpret and provide a solution to the client, right? So the solutions are complex and so unique in nature that only an actuary is able to understand. And that gives you a great position. And I can speak for any actuary working in an insurance firm, consulting firm, anywhere else. They are held in high esteem, right? So that was all pros of actuarial science, not cons. Really, like I mentioned, work-life study balance can be a challenge. I mean, you have to, sometimes it is a bit of a disappointment when you see your friends having fun over weekend when you have to study. Passing exams can be long drawn, but like I mentioned, you can accelerate it by working very hard, doing masters, which gives you exemptions, etc. It's yet to be widely penetrated into other fields. So what it really means is that currently actuaries, and especially in India, are most widely used in insurance companies, right? Insurance companies or consulting firms, consulting to insurance companies. And there are a number of global insurance companies that have offices in India. But yeah, primarily it's around insurance companies where there are certain wider applications of actuarial science as well. But I would say 90% of the professionals are engaged with insurance companies. Now, that is a current limitation of the profession, especially in India. The profession is doing a number of activities to actually increase its penetration. So one example is that any company in India that has employees more than 50 in number, they have to actually get a actuary to sign off on the benefits they are providing to the employees. So imagine the number of companies and imagine the amount of business and it's generating for the actuaries to do. So there are hundreds of consulting firms that are processing just this aspect of just signing off on the liabilities for different companies. So whether it's a shoe manufacturing company or even a small office with just 50 people, they all need to get basically a certificate that they have sufficient money to pay off their employees on the benefit side, right? So that's one of the applications with the actual profession actually worked with the government to bring on. Now the actual profession is also working with bank and the bank authorities to bring about another change where, for example, the actuaries would have to sign off on the assets of the bank. Okay, which what it means is basically, what it means is when I say sign off is basically an actuary will certify that the bank has enough assets. We've seen recently, especially, I mean, in India, we've seen recently that there are a lot of issues in the banking side of things, right? So a lot of illiquid assets, a lot of non-performing assets. You've probably heard of risk mitigation activities have been carried out. So So all of that aspect would be really something which currently the profession is working with the uh, central bank to come up with a system where the actuaries would be signing off on this. So there will be higher penetration of actuaries, for example, to work with banks as well. Given this, but I guess there is the penetration has to increase, which does mean that opportunities can be a challenge, especially at a fresher level. The only way of coming around that is trying to get internship, trying to get some differentiator on your CV to make yourself more visible. The fourth point is students are ill-advised. So I've seen a lot of students join who are not able to succeed. These are very highly qualified students who are not able to succeed because they were not given proper advice. Actual profession was not for them. They were not advised as to what specialization they need to do. So I think that's something, again, the profession is trying to change. We have now a lot of forums where students can interact with qualified actuaries. But yes, I think understanding of the profession before joining is something which is very important, given that it's a fairly long journey. But definitely, I can say from my experience, a very rewarding journey. Right. So next slide, please. Okay, a day in the life of an actuary. I was really thinking about what to put here. I put down a lot of text. So let me just talk through what I mean. So typically for a student actuary, you will have to split your day such that you have some time for work and some time for studying. Usually a student actuary would study at the end of the day or over the weekend. Now work clearly entails of a few elements. One is data. So where the data will come from, what is the data which is required for my problem statement? Is the data credible or not? If the data is there, I would need to create assumptions. So what data I need, how to analyze the data, etc., are some of the first data questions which any actuary given in any point of their career would be answering. Okay, model. You could either be creating a model, which will basically project to make my say cash flows, or for any other requirements. So this model is basically an Excel based or an actual software based application, which will help me really make sense of all these uncertainties in the financial world. And this I'm primarily looking at in insurance world, right? So either you are a user of the model, you may be updating the model, or you may be creating the model. Model is central to an actuarial work at any point. Analyzing, of course, once you have the data, you have created the model, you've churned the data, you would need to analyze the model, create a report, communicate your understanding, the what you have done clearly. Very, very essential. The communication aspect, like I've said, is the most essential skill set for an actuary. I think given a person who joins the actuarial field, it's given that you will have analytical skills. It's given that you have a mathematical bent of mind. It's given that you will learn how to understand, interpret data, model, etc. But communication is something which a lot of times I see that people don't put enough emphasis on, but that's something which you require not just in actuarial profession, but any profession really. Now let's go into deeper. So for an insurance company, for example, an actuary will be involved in the entire life cycle of a insurance product, right? So right from my development of a product that, for example, right now during the pandemic, COVID was my main risk, right? So the regulator said that all insurance companies, you have to come up with a product for COVID as a risk. So companies had to think, what is it that, how can we provide insurance against the issues around COVID? Okay, so development of a product and pricing it. Obviously, when you price a product, you have to manage a lot of things, right? You just price it, then it has to be marketable, because if, for example, my competition is selling it for half my price, I will not be able to sell it. However, if I put it half my price, maybe it's not meeting my internal requirement. Maybe the regulator does not allow this. Okay, so managing a lot of stakeholders when it comes to pricing it. A regulatory requirement. The profession, like I said, there is a certification which a qualified actuary can do, and that is extremely used for regulatory reporting. So there are a number, the regulator asks an insurance company to provide a number of understanding to see that the insurance company is functioning healthily, and an actuary basically is responsible for reporting this out to the regulator. Investment and risk management. So basically, setting up the entire investment requirement for a company, risk management requirement. So what risks are there? How is it mitigated, etc. And then communicating with various stakeholders, including the CFO, CEO, board, regulator, etc. Now, consulting firm, which is where I work, they do all of this. So they support insurance companies and all of this, and then they do a little more of other things. So for example, we work with, can you go to the previous slide, please? And previous slide. Oh, so that previous slide, please. You've gone, yeah. So there are a number of, and how am I doing on time?
Well, we are right on time. So we have 40 more minutes left in the session. So I think we'll be able to cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so so consultants, for example, they do a little bit of this and then a little more. So consultants, have to be ahead of the game. So any new requirement which comes in the market, right? So for example, there are there is a new regulation requirement. There is a new challenge. The pandemic created a lot of challenge. The consultant is required to really come up with solutions around those faster. So faster you come up, the faster you can take it to an insurance company and help them with their problems, right? Then also we work with private equity firms, for example, who are trying to invest in insurance companies, with a number of banks as well, again, trying to invest in insurance companies. The government in helping develop certain policies. So for example, recently I was involved with the Gujarat government in developing a policy around health welfare schemes in Gujarat. Okay. Then again, and you can work with the World Bank as well. So again, Bangladesh, for example, is going through an actuarial insurance modernization, right? So Bangladesh currently has regulations or which are 50 years old, where India was just after independence, for example, and Bangladesh has not updated those. So World Bank has committed to Bangladesh in funding their modernization, and PwC is involved. For example, I'm involved heavily with them in getting about that modernization done. So for example, in setting up processes for the state insurers, life and the general insurers, then developing certain policies and regulations to make sure that it is a strong regulated market, right? So that's interesting. Right. So this is typically what a day in the life of an actuary looks like. It's for an insurance company, it's the areas of work are more traditional. For consulting companies, you do provide a lot of support. So probably 60% of the work we do is in the traditional side of things, but 40% would be in additional areas as well, which I mentioned. All of this work would be around data, model, analyze, report, communicate, right? Any problem statement within the profession is evolving around this. We are trying to solve these 4 or 5 issues all the time. The problem statement may change. Studying for exams is something which a student actually has to do as an integrated part of this exercise. So you stretch late or you work over the weekends to do this. You do get some exam leaves, like I mentioned that each company gives you a certain number of exam leaves, but that's a benefit. Sometimes you are not able to avail it because of work pressure, etc. Also, that's not the complete amount of effort you need to pass an exam. You need to put in a lot more effort. Okay, right. So next slide. Okay. So before I talk about latest career-related trends and developments, I want to understand if there's anybody in this group who currently has an inclination towards actuarial science, has some understanding of the profession, or if somebody even has a question. Varinya has raised her hand. So
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
I don't understand how you can work but also have to take exams at the same time, but the eligibility is just a basic pass from class 12 with math. So could
That's
you?
for UK. I think for India, there is something called ASSET, which is an actuarial, I don't know, common eligibility test, I think. So there is a basically, most, so I know about UK, I know about Australia and about US, that you just need like 12 standard pass to be able to write exams. For India, you need to basically do this common entrance test, which is really 12 standard maths. It's very simple. Okay. Any others with okay. So so let's look at what are the current latest trends and developments which are affecting actuarial science. Like I mentioned, that the profession is there is a lot of future of profession working with the banks. I think that's going to happen in the next couple of years. There is a lot of focus by the profession, and I think there is a requirement given how the banks have failed, so that it needs to be more regulated. So definitely, actuaries would be involved with banks. Data science and actuarial skill sets are getting more and more integrated. So, like I mentioned, that we are using R for certain subjects. So basically, I think certain subjects now you have to is going to be introducing over the next couple of years. More actuaries are now becoming CFOs in insurance industry. This is because, so what has happened is the insurance industry globally is undergoing a very significant change. Okay, it may not sound very significant to you right now, but you can assume that if you basically take some of it and if you use some of this understanding in your conversations, then the person sitting on the other side will be impressed. So basically, the entire insurance industry around the globe were facing challenges with the fact that they couldn't compare with each other, or also they couldn't compare themselves with another company, say a bottle manufacturing company. Okay, so if I'm an investor, I'm a private equity firm, and I wanted to invest my money, I couldn't really understand my insurance, looking at the financial statements of an insurance company, what is the inherent profit, just because how it is set up currently. So this was a problem statement which all insurance companies, all regulators around the world were trying to solve. Now they have come up with a new standard, which is called IFRS 17. It's a massive standard which has been developed over 25 years. It impacts an insurance company completely. But the standard is such that mostly actuaries can understand it very well. So even though it's an accounting standard, actuaries understand it very well. So what's happening and what is the expectation in the next decade or so is that now more and more actuaries are going to be becoming CFOs, are going to be taking finance role as well. So the finance controller path role as well in an insurance industry, just because the accounting standard, which is impacting all insurance companies around the globe, I would say like 85% of the insurance companies are becoming, which like its name suggests, came in 2017. It requires the companies to completely change how they calculate their profit and loss for a company. The entire standard is not very well understood by the CFO office. Hence now the expectation is more and more actuaries will become CFOs. like I mentioned, regulation is constantly evolving. So IFRS 17 is one, but there are other policyholder protection. So insurance as an industry is has a deep impact on the country, because it helps protect individuals against certain losses, right? So, for example, right now, given the pandemic, you would have seen that health insurance. If you did not have health insurance, there were large amounts of money you had to pay to the hospital. But if you had health insurance, that was something which you could have offset that requirement. So now more and more younger sort of people are buying health insurance because of the impact of the pandemic. Now, so policyholder protection. So if an insurance company doesn't work well, there are huge implications for people, for common people. So which is why the regulator is very strong on the regulations for a policyholder. And these are hence constantly evolving. And any regulatory change, any regulation requirement has to be signed off by an actuary. Hence the need for more and more actuaries to be involved, more and more consultants to be involved, because these things are constantly evolving. I mentioned India is highly under-penetrated. So I think the total penetration, if I look at life and non-life insurance, is around 3%, 3.2%. And if I compare it to other markets, it's very, very, very low. Imagine only 3% of people in India have insurance. Now, insurance itself is about pooling risk, right? So if more and more people are able to do that, they can protect themselves against calamities. But unfortunately, in India, insurance still has to be sold. It's not looked as a need. And unfortunately, a lot of people still don't go for insurance. But that gives a huge opportunity for the growth. So you can imagine there is a huge opportunity. If it's only 3.2%, just imagine if it became from doubled in size, the amount of work which will be required, the amount of opportunity which will be there for insurance companies, right? So that is something that is should be looked at as an opportunity, that India is still highly under-penetrated. I think there is a lot of opportunity in terms of what innovation you can do in terms of insurance companies open, given that the latest regulation, there is in the latest budget, there is a mention of the capital. Right now, and global investor can only invest up to 49%, but the current budget mentions that it can go up to 74%. So we do expect a lot of capital, foreign capital inflow into the industry, so the insurance industry to grow further. Last but not the least, actuaries are working in a lot of newer areas. So I have a couple of colleagues who've opened a consulting firm that's around gaming. So they are doing fantastic work in sort of creating games using their actuarial probability skills. Development initiatives, which I mentioned, banks, which I mentioned, and some other sort of. So I want to, while I have focused a lot about on the traditional areas of actuaries, I think actuarial as a skill set, as a profession, gives you a lot of skill sets just from a business sense as well, right? So while in India it's more insurance related, outside a lot of asset liability management work is performed by actuaries as well. So in UK, for example, asset liability management is heavily penetrated by the actuarial profession. So Siddharth, I want to stop here. I want to, because the next couple of slides are more very specific. If we have questions around exams, and we can go through that. Now, if we have questions, let's take that.
Sure. Students, you have unmuting rights. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask ma'am any questions which you may have.
So let me understand, how many of you have heard about the profession? Is there a polling system we can use, Siddharth? Okay, I can see only a few, which is great, guys, because to be fair, I had not even heard of the profession when I got into it. So are any of you currently interested in pursuing actuarial as a profession? And do you understand? I would actually, my question is, do you understand what the profession entails now? Okay, so ask me questions, guys. I mean, I would really encourage you to just have.
Right. We'll go in the order. Tushar, if you could please wait. Advait, starting with you.
Hi, Miss. So I do know that time management is quite a requisite factor probably for any student. So I know when it comes to pursuing actuarial science, it is quite an important factor. So could you just lay down some tips onto how can you manage your time quite efficiently?
Sure. So basically, I think one of the key ways to do this is starting in time. So usually, what happens is that you procrastinate, and all of us procrastinate, and we sort of push it such that it's closer to the exam deadline. But I think if you are able to come up with a structure where you put in regular number of hours, then it becomes a part of your life. You don't have to extend yourself out more than what you are doing on a daily basis, so that you can have sort of your weekends to yourself. You can have a good level of balance. Having I said that, I think in your initial years, I would say that you take on more and more exams, because once you grow in your jobs, when you in your personal life, your responsibilities increase. So it's much better to get as many papers, work very hard initially, get as many papers out as possible initially, and then sort of you can take it. Also, the higher exams, they become easier. So for personally, I would say the higher exams are easier because those are just practical applications of what you're working in, so that it becomes much easier to give when you have experience, right? So I think those are not the challenges. Challenges become the initial ones, where you have to actually put the hard work. So I would say that initial, probably if you work hard for 2 years or 3 years, then you are in a really good shape, and you can wrap it up in 4.5 years.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah, hi, ma'am. I'm planning on pursuing an undergraduate degree in accounting and finance. And I actually want to move on into a more specialized master's, and then move on into, industry to start working. So my main aim when I move into the industry is to get into the Big Four. And what are some aspects which you feel would be extremely important for, a candidate to get into the Big Four? Because, obviously you move in from a prestigious university, and there's many people like you, right? That are applying for the same job. So what are some aspects that you consider would help you, differentiate from the rest of the crowd?
Right. So when you say industry, usually in a consulting sense, industry is the company. So whichever industry you're applying to, usually industry refers to the core, and consulting. So you don't use industry and consulting within the same sentence. So just to give you perspective. Well, I think the skill sets which are required for a consulting or a core company is fairly consistent, at least on one level, which is showcasing your excellence in whichever fields you are. So showcasing through some way, either through the degree, the qualification, through some internship, how you've gathered some level of excellence. Okay. Second is communication skills, like I mentioned, and especially this becomes extremely important in the consulting world. For a consultant, the inability to communicate is a showstopper, right? So that's something which will be evaluated, whichever consulting fields you choose. Having said that, I think apart from these two, it is really I mean, it's very wide for me to say that what you should do without knowing what kind of consulting you want to pursue. But yeah, I mean, if you're able to show some level of communication skills, I think it's a fairly good way of getting into consulting. I also feel that for a consulting firms, a lot of times it becomes more sensible after you've gotten some experience, because it's easier to get hired with some level of experience into a consulting firm than as a fresher. But having said that, we do hire freshers as well all the time. So yeah.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. I just had a quick question. What are some ideal undergraduate degrees, majors, and minors you can study to pursue actuarial sciences?
So like I said, so basically, maths, stats, economics, commerce, um, all of these are very good foundations. The profession only requires you to have a 12 standard maths degree, right? Like I said, one of the most brilliant actuaries I worked with was a PhD in physics. So this is not a limiting factor, these requirements. But I think, having probably a commerce or an economics, I would think those are very strong degrees that complement the profession.
Sure, thank you, ma'am. I also had a follow-up question. Are there any certified courses you need to pursue for actuarial sciences for additional information on the field, or is there not?
No, the actual science itself is a certificate, certifying qualification. You can pursue, so there is basically the way it's structured, the exams are structured is that you have one level of core exams, which are generic, those can be asset specific. So you have to basically specialize. And the last exam is basically the qualifying exam is a specialist application. So it's basically the specialist exam in a little more concentrated manner. Okay. So really, you don't require any other exams to qualify as an actuary. But of course, I encourage all of you to take, have some understanding of a programming language, R, which the profession is already sort of encouraging, Python, and any other language, because that is one great differentiator to have on your resume as well.
Sure, thank you so much, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. So you already told that 90% of the actuarians go to the insurance company to make the policy. My question is that what are those 10% people, but go in what kind of jobs they do, and if the job of actuarian is to make policies like insurance companies do, then what are those 10% do in other than insurance companies?
So let me answer your question in two parts. One is basically the work in an insurance company is not just related to developing a product. Okay, developing a product is one aspect. Second is basically once, for example, the insurance company has a product, has sold a product, for example. Now I've sold a life insurance, okay, which is basically to say a 25-year-old, and his life expectancy, which means that he's expected to die at the age of 85, right? So there are so many years after which he will die, and that's when I have to make the payment, right? Now, insurance company, however, has taken premium today, right? And probably will take premium, a little bit of premium every year, but the payout is going to be in 85 years of time. So it is essential for the insurance company to keep some money aside for when the death happens, right? Now,
Yes.
that calculation or evaluation is again something an actuary does. Okay. Now, that is one aspect. The other is an insurance company, like any financial industry company, faces a lot of risks. Okay, actually, any industry faces a lot of risks. But let's look at financial sector. They face a fair bit of risk, which are because of some financial exposure, like equity, bond yield, etc. Insurance has some other risks as well, right? If a person dies early, late, etc. If I expect the person to die at 85, but the person dies at 60, so I need the money at 60 as well. The person can live up to 95 also, so I may have to keep the money for longer, right? So all of those risks are there. So basically, having a risk management policy or developing that risk management policy is also something an actuary does. Okay. Now, the fourth area where an actuary works, and this is just the traditional areas I'm talking about, is on the business strategy side within an insurance company, right? So, for example, what product at what price, what distribution channel. Distribution channel means which way should I sell it? Should I go, should I do cold calling like and sell my product? Should I sell it online like a lot of car insurance sold? Should I sell it through a bank where you're buying a bank product and it is sold along with a bank product, or through or another strategy, right? So basically strategy or business development is also something which an insurer in which an actuary does. Okay, so these are some of the areas that you work within an insurance company. Now, outside of an insurance company, like I mentioned, a fair bit of work as a consultant we do. We work with private equity funds to do due diligence. So when an equity fund, private PE, or an investor wants to invest in an insurance company, assessing them or helping them make those investments is something also that an actuary does. Then helping governments formulate
Is there any
policy.
difference between risk management and actuarial sciences?
Of course. So risk management is risk management is a part of the actuarial science. So actuary as a profession will help manage risks which are inherent in an insurance company, but that's not all that an actuary does. Like I mentioned, that they do far more as well. They do strategy as well. They do, for example, development as well, your policy development as well for an insurance company. Outside insurance company, they do a lot of other things, like I mentioned, with banks. Like any company with more than 50 employees needs a sign off from an actuary, right? So it's called employee benefit sign off, which any company that has more than 50 employees needs to get a sign off from an actuary to say a certificate. Otherwise, they don't get an audit approval. Okay, so any company which is getting audited, which is more than 50 in number, needs a sign off from an actuary. That's a lot of work for actuaries.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, just a quick question that, you said that if a person come of 25 years and there is a life expectancy of 85, so every time the customer comes, then they have to make a new policy for them, or just a common one?
So basically, you obviously create a structure of a policy. Then you have factors. Say a person is age this, male or female, we don't differentiate, but a person is a smoker, non-smoker. Okay, has this salary bracket. What profession is he in? If he's working on the field, or if he is in a white collar kind of a job. So all of these which can have implication on the person's mortality, for example. So this is very one specific product. So all of this which can have impacts on the person's mortality, those factors are considered. Then those data are filled into your algorithm, and that will give you the price of the premium.
Yes. Ma'am, can I have one more question, ma'am?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, you said that we need a very good communication skills and good command in mathematics. So is there a need of accounting, accountancy, or finance? Means finance is needed, that's common, because we need to make strategy.
So there is a paper, accounting paper within the 15 exams which I said. I think those exams look a little different now. They were 15, I think now they're 13 in number. Some of those papers have been clubbed, but one paper is basically purely on accounting. So it is not necessary for you to have accounting. If you do have accounting as a platform, again, great. That's a leverage you can use, but it's not a requirement, because one of the exams is an accounting paper.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe you have a question.
Yeah. I wanted to know if you think that there would be a higher demand for someone in actuarial science rather than someone in risk management, or can you not compare?
When you say someone in risk management, what is so actuarial science is a professional qualification. Risk management is an application, right? So, for example, I can do risk management without having done any qualification, of course, having some level of understanding of risk management, right? So, for example, COSO framework. So that's a framework, a global framework on risk management. Now, anybody can really perform it. You don't need certification to perform risk management or get compliance to COSO framework. Now, so hence the question is, I think they can't be compared because they are two different aspects. One is a qualification and one is an application. Okay, so if you want to become like, if you want to have a wider, I mean, you can become an actuary and do risk management. While you are an actuary, you are performing risk management, but you can do risk management for other companies as well. But for risk management, you don't necessarily need a specific degree, really. You need to have certain smaller sort of certifications, but you don't need to have a qualification.
I understand. Thanks.
Okay.
So simply we can just open a consultancy firm to start up a risk management business.
Well, if it is that simple, then
no, means if we have an understanding, if we have an understanding of finance.
No, so for obviously you need, so for any consulting job, you need a lot of credibility, right? So for you to be able to establish credibility, you need some element of experience. There are certifications within risk management which can assist you in proving those credibility. Any certification, any qualification gives you that kind of credibility, right? So of course you can, but it's not a limiting factor.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Right, guys, do we have any other question? One last question. We just have time for one last question. And if nobody has a question, I would assume that it would, and it is needless to say, it was a very clear presentation, and all the thoughts which have been shared with you were very straightforward as well. So I can see that nobody has raised a hand or anything so I would assume that there are no questions. So, and very quickly, thank you so very much, Mrs. Bhargava, for an excellent presentation and spending time with aspirants and ourselves on a Saturday evening. Certainly, I mean, students have learned a lot from your experience and will be able to take all the learnings back. I want to very quickly add a note, and as you may already know, that COVID-19 is making people and organizations think very differently about the world and do things very differently, and ISBF is no exception to that. And as a token of appreciation, we would like to extend a thank you voucher from an apparel startup founded by ISBF students. The name of the company is Emacity, and it desires to contribute towards living sustainably by enabling responsible consumption in a irresponsible era of fast fashion. Once again, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. This is a very thoughtful gesture. Thank you so much. And I mean, just one probably note that anybody who's interested, you can look me up on LinkedIn, connect with me whenever you have questions. I'm happy to facilitate, happy to help. I know some of these questions probably come later. A lot of these decisions, I have been in touch with a couple of ISBF students, and I know some of them pursuing now actual profession. So I'm extremely happy to help and engage.
Right. Thank you so very much once again. I mean, it was wonderful to have you here with us. Students, I would request you to stay back. We would be starting with our drop-in session for those of you who have questions to me or to Professor Aripriya, who would be joining us here any second.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.